everybody. Welcome to Comics and Chronic. This is Anthony Iannaccio here today. Jake and Cody, I think they went to Arrakis to re-up on some spice, so they'll be back later. But I'm here today because I'm talking to Phillip Kennedy Johnson. He's a writer. You might have read his run on Action Comics. He has a current run with Incredible Hulk, Green Lantern War Journal, and he's here today to actually talk about a Boom Studios series called Crocodile Black. I'm excited to learn more about that. I'm excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, man. It's great being here.
Thanks. Big fan of yours. I definitely discovered you through your Action Comics run, and I've been keeping up with you ever since. So it's good to have you on the show.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, of course. That War World saga, man, that brought some life into Superman that I really like to see. I loved how you approached the character. Superman has always been one of my favorites. You know, I feel like he gets dumped on a lot, but I really liked your run.
Thanks, man. It was a huge honor to get to do it. I mean, honestly, if they'd asked me to do any book at DC, no bullshit, I think it would have been Action Comics. That's the granddaddy book, right? I mean, the one that everything else kind of comes from, and it's just such a huge honor to get to put a mark on that title.
So it was the first book of yours I've read, but how did you get your start in comics? Is there like a giant leap from indie to DC, like right into Superman, or do you have some smaller, tackle like some smaller single issues before that?
You know, my first book was actually a webcomic that I did on my personal site. I had just kind of a blog that I was just kind of entertaining myself with, just kind of keeping up with comics, and I was putting my thoughts on art and culture and like my travels. Like I tour a lot for my other gig. I play music as well, and I was touring a lot. Nice. And I was just kind of putting my thoughts about art and culture online, and that started to skew pretty heavily towards comics. And I started looking for people to work with, and I found this amazing artist named Steve Beach, who you may know him from Action Comics covers more recently, but back in the day.
Oh my God, those covers are beautiful. Yes. Okay.
Right? Yeah, Steve is just a genius of an artist. And I don't throw around that word. Like he's amazing. And at the time he was just at an art school. And so he and I did this webcomic. I want to do this period horror piece on my site. That's still there, like this 110 page horror comic set in World War II that Steve just drew the crap out of. That was my first finished book, but my first printed book that I was doing around the same time was one called Last Sons of America. And that was from Boom Studios. That was kind of like a 4-issue crime story set in a world in which Americans couldn't have kids anymore.
Nice. Okay.
And it kind of just took a look at the for-profit adoption industry and how it ties in with human trafficking, and in this kind of this high concept, like gently sci-fi kind of story. That was a Boom, and it was really fun, went really well. That led to some more Boom work. Some of that work from Boom got read at DC. Some of it got picked up in Marvel, and eventually got invited to do some stuff at both places. So I did an Aquaman annual at DC and a short war story at Marvel, actually. And both of those were, good experiences for me and for the editors, and just led to more stuff. And one thing did led to another, and eventually got the call to do Superman.
Nice. So it kind of surprises me, having read some of your other work, that Superman, like you have a lot of horror in all of your other comics, I noticed. And there's some I could see it in Action Comics with the Metallo. There's some even on War World. Where does your horror influence come into the picture?
Man, just a love of horror stories, honestly. Probably some deep-seated emotional stuff I need to get out some. Like we've all got our stories. We all have our childhoods. No, but I really love horror movies, man. And I just feel like horror lends itself to comics extremely well. Like there's a lot of things with pacing and with the page turns and with the, especially if you have an artist with a really distinct style, you can pull off just amazing stuff with horror in a comic book.
Oh yeah.
And some of my favorite comics have been extremely creepy. Hellboy is probably my favorite comic run of all time. I love Hellblazer too. I love, God, so many things. There's this amazing adaptation of Beowulf that is not, I guess horror wouldn't be in the horror section, but there's these really memorable, horrific images that just really speak to me.
That's a graphic novel adaptation?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
By Rubin and Garcia. Extremely well done. God, what else? More recently, Ice Cream Man is great.
Oh, love Ice Cream Man, yeah.
A lot of Tynan's, like James Tynan's creepy stuff. Like, I don't know, man. Horror comics just speaks to me. But the same but horror prose and film also. I just love those stories. I don't know. They speak to me in a way that I can't explain.
So is there a specific horror movie or story that kind of influenced Crocodile Black, or where? So that feels like a pandemic story, right? Like I wanted to point out that, like, first of all, I don't think there's been many pieces of media that like actually are like talking about the pandemic. This felt like that.
I know.
Like,
I know.
right?
When we were all in it, I was really surprised and honestly kind of disappointed with how comics in particular just were pretending like it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was creepy almost. Like when I open up a book and, we're all, everyone's 6 feet apart and everyone's masked up and businesses are shut down. The world just looks so different. And there's this crazy sense of uncertainty about what's coming next. Because nobody alive has lived through this before. No one knows what's coming, how long it's going to last, whether the world's ever going back to quote unquote normal, or if this is what it looks like now. But you open up the books and it's all just like business as usual. And I thought that was this huge missed opportunity. Like anytime I was opening up a comic or watching a show or anything, and like everything just looks normal, in the back of my head, there's this voice screaming like, too close. Like you see like a bunch of people like crowded in the subway or something.
Yeah.
That just didn't feel like real life anymore. It was uncomfortable to even see it on the page. So yeah, I wanted to do a story about, that's not really, Crocodile Black is not about the pandemic, but the pandemic is just the setting for which a story like this had to take place. Because it's, in a way, it's about the power of masks. It's about how, how people, there's a certain kind of person that felt more comfortable in the mask than out of it. Like that really thrives with that distance. Some people just really, prefer not to be, super close and chummy with people. Some people would rather have that distance between them and everyone around them. And this is about a person like that, where, even though some people really struggle during the pandemic in a lot of ways with the lack of social interaction, there's this character in this book for whom that is not the case. Like for someone who, before and during the early pandemic, they were kind of in this shit life that they didn't really want, with a job they, don't like and it's going nowhere. They had no prospects. They live at home with their dad that he hates, and everything just kind of sucks. And then something happens in this first issue that changes everything. And now he has this opportunity to kind of reinvent himself in a way, and through very dark circumstances. But the way that a lot of us did, the way a lot of people just said screw it to their entry-level job that they hated, or the college program that they never really wanted to pursue, or the thing that they were just kind of sleepwalking through. And they were just like, what am I doing this for? The world's ending anyway, man. I want to do the thing I always wanted to do. And they just like to walk out,
Yeah, no, that part of it really resonated with me, because before the pandemic, I had a completely different job, completely different life, really. Not that we're kind of still in it. So it's kind of weird to say like, right. COVID went away. But like, let's say 2021, which I'm guessing is when you probably started writing this story, or at least is that when it's supposed to take place?
It takes place in 2021, yeah, and that's okay. I wasn't really writing it then, but I was kind of thinking through it. The first seeds for the story definitely were planted that year.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. No. And then going back to the whole like changing careers thing, like this podcast was started with me and the two other guys, Cody and Jake, January 2021. Like it was meant as a way for us to kind of stay sane, keep our friendship alive. And it's funny how it like kind of became my life after the fact. Like, yes, I still have my day job, but this is something like 200 episodes later we're still doing, and we still get to talk to creators like you. So it's so awesome that a shitty situation, I guess, could give birth to something like that. But for me, for this comic, I'm guessing, or the main character of this comic, I'm guessing that's not how his story is going to end.
It's not going to be quite as uplifting, but it is kind of about like, what if so you've got this awesome podcast now that you wanted before, and now you have it. Somebody else they were working in the kitchen someplace, and they decided to like, I want to own my own business, or I want to be a YouTuber, I want to be a professional fighter, I want to go and study this crazy thing that there's no guaranteed job at the end of it, like this thing that I love. For this particular character, though, he finds something that he did not expect to find. And he has this secret. And then that kind of leads him on this path towards finding the thing, towards becoming the person he always secretly wanted to be, which is a dangerous man. So his story of reinvention is much darker than most of us. But it's one where, I don't know, I feel like it's one that a lot of us can relate to, where they secretly want this thing, and then the world ends, and then they just go out and take it. So that's what Crocodile Black is about. It's about dark reinvention. It's about the power of masks. It's kind of my love letter to Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, crime noir kind of stories.
Oh, I love their stuff. Yeah.
God, it's great. Yeah. And you asked about film we kind of moved away from it. You asked about any specific films. Have you seen a movie called Nightcrawler?
Oh yeah. With Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
Yes.
That would be the influence.
Okay. I think that's going to be a huge selling point, by the way. Like if one of my co-hosts, Jake, was here, if he heard that, he'd be like, yes, it's on my pull list immediately.
Awesome.
Like I feel those vibes too. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. The thing that was so compelling about that story is, the main character is not a good guy. In fact, he's kind of a bad person, but he's kind of it starts out as just kind of this low life. And then he sees something, he finds something, gets the opportunity to find his true calling. And even though that true calling is not necessarily a virtuous thing, it's the thing that he was born to do, and he goes out and he becomes this massive success story, but in this really dark way, and that's kind of what this is about too. Almost like a Breaking Bad sort of way, but really more like Nightcrawler, where it's the psychological, we see his broken parts that make him perfect for this thing.
It hasn't been touched on, I guess, in the first issue, but I can already see that where if he has these boots that he's found, that it's gonna kind of give him that confidence, I guess, that I'm picturing that Jake Gyllenhaal starts to get in the movie where, once he's in this, he becomes a part of it. I guess there's this is me, obviously it's your story, so and I've only read the first issue, but it feels like a slow burn, so I'm trying to picture where it's going.
Yeah, I wish I could show you the next issue because it is a slow burn. The whole thing is a very, very steady buildup of excitement, of danger and darkness, but also of visually. The whole thing. Sam, the artist, was just this crucial find to making this book work, because Sam has this gift of there's this kind of signature thing that he does in his artwork where he'll show a scene from life, just ordinary life, but with some kind of crazy supernatural intrusion of the grotesque on it. So if you see some of his sketchbook stuff online, there'll be an image of a guy smoking and driving, and there's this something crazy and cosmic horror type shit is happening around the smoke and changing the world around it. Or this man and woman are kissing, but something is happening with their faces. It doesn't make sense. You're seeing an image of real life with an intrusion of the grotesque that is extremely distinct. It just gives some this really distinct, creepy look, And that was just exactly what we wanted to capture in this story. So, you see hints of it in the first issue, but the next issue, especially the back half of issue 2, and then increasingly so in issues 3, 4, 5, you're going to see that just level up and up and up, and see this, see Danny, this character, really becoming this other thing in a way that is going to be just visually unforgettable. So I can't wait for people to see the upcoming issues.
Yeah, the art itself is incredible. And I did want to ask, because there are moments in the art where maybe there's this figure that's kind of this, I guess it's supposed to be his brother or something, but it's this red squiggly drawing. Is it just meant to be psychological, or are there supernatural elements in this comic?
I don't want to spoil it because I want readers to see that. And I showed this to a friend of mine, and he read it twice, and he said the first time through, the first time you see the scratchy, squiggly character kind of just rolling through the kitchen on his tricycle, he didn't notice it.
Yes, I was going to say that. Yes, I didn't notice it at all.
Awesome. That's great to hear. That's exactly what we want. Because it's, later there's a much more overt thing where he's looking in the rearview mirror and the kid is clearly there.
Yeah.
But he's not there. And it's clear that Danny can see him and we can't. And I wanted there to be these moments where, almost like Fight Club, where you're not sure if you saw a thing, and then you go back and look at it again. It's oh shit, I missed that the first time. I want the readers to not know exactly what's happening yet. There's going to be some moments upcoming where ideally I want the reader to kind of question their own sanity as they read the book.
Okay, nice. Okay, so I guess I'm asking the right questions, but I don't want the answers yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So this comes out on May 8th. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's my birthday, actually. So that's
happy
awesome.
Birthday. That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. FOC, final order cutoff is April 15th, and then the book is on shelves from Boom on May 8th.
Okay, great. So I'll definitely get this episode out before then so that people have a chance to pre-order if they want, because I would definitely recommend Crocodile Black.
Thanks, dude.
I definitely want to read more. I wish I could have read past the first issue, because I was just what? I need more of this.
I'll get it to you. Yeah, I need to see
awesome.
it. I'm going to start posting some images too from issue 2, because I really want people to see where this is going to go. I'm going to try to find some non-spoilery images so people can see how far down the rabbit hole Sam's art is going on this book. It's so dope.
Nice. Yeah, no, Sam, I need to check out more of their art. I should have wrote it down. I know they have another comic, Brigand. Is that another comic they worked on?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
I think this is Sam's first, I could be wrong, but I think this is Sam's first comic that will be widely available in the West.
Okay.
Sam lives in Mumbai, and he actually, I don't think I discovered him through Ram, but Ram V is a dear friend.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And he did something with Ram before, just like a short, I think. And as I discovered Sam, I think I found Sam before I was even going to use him on a book or anything. I just found his work and loved it. So I just followed him. And then when I was looking for artists for this book, he just jumped to mind. And I was asking Ram about him. I was like, yeah, dude, you got to use Sam. So they've worked together. I mean, yeah, most of my artists, you and I were talking a little bit about this before, but most of my artists, I have not actually, I shouldn't say most, but probably about half of the artists I work with, I've not actually met in person because they live overseas very often. So hopefully someday I'll get to see Palm.
Does that make the working relationship harder? Did you have to find a way to navigate that?
No, well, the ways in which it makes it harder are questions of schedule. Sometimes, if you're mostly working while the other person is sleeping and vice versa, then sometimes it's just you'll get an email from them, and you won't get it until they're asleep or until it's inconvenient to respond or something. And so sometimes communication can happen slowly for that reason. But otherwise it's completely fine. It's all happening through email and, Google Chat and stuff like that anyway. So yeah, I guess that's the biggest challenge. Sometimes I work with artists for whom English is not their first language.
Gotcha.
And I like to know when that's the case because it affects how I write the script. I mean, if I'm writing a script for a native speaker, I can just write, as I would speak to them normally and not have to worry about anything. But if it's somebody for whom English is not the first language, if they're using a translation app or something, then I need to make sure that I write very clearly and succinctly, that I'm not using words that have double meanings. Because I don't want to, just make some big stupid mistake without realizing it. Mm-hmm. So stuff like that. But for the most part, it's not an issue at all.
So I do want to ask you a little bit about your writing process too, because I'm in the middle of writing my first comic. Let's say I did a 10-pager.
Congrats.
Thank you. I'm working on a Kickstarter or some way to release it later this year, but it's my very first comic. So I guess I wanted to ask, writing a first issue, because I've read a lot of your first issues. What is your thought process on whether it's a new series or just, for instance, Green Lantern War Journal, it's a new series, but there's a status quo change. In Action Comics, it's not a new series, but it's a change that you're putting into place. How does that work?
If you're writing the first issue of story, you kind of have to you don't have to, but I like to kind of make the promise to the reader in the first issue and have it clear by the end. There's this thing that you study or should at least be aware of as a writer called 3-act structure.
Of course, yeah.
That applies to most films and, most stories kind of. And by the end of the first act is kind of when you've established what's about to happen. You've established you've introduced the characters, you've established the situation that they're in, what their life is like, who they are as people, and then something happens that kind of turns their whole life on their head. Or there's some inciting incident that happens that kind of kicks the story into high gear. You want that, in my opinion, you want that inciting incident to happen at or near the end of the first issue, so that there's kind of a statement of this is the promise that the book will keep, that the series will keep. So in a relatively short series like Crocodile Black is, Crocodile Black is currently slotted for 5 issues. That first arc, if readers are rabid for more, we can probably do another arc or 2. But this particular story that we're telling is kind of like a film, right? It's it is a certain length. There's an ending coming. I find that the rhythm of a comics miniseries works out really well, so that the end of the first act comes really cleanly at the end of the first issue. And even with a long ongoing series like Action Comics, that's still the case. I want there to be some kind of a promise made by the end of the first issue that readers can see and identify and know what to expect with all the issues that follow. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. But with your approach, so you didn't say it was your first comic, but with your web comic, was that something you didn't try to sell? It was just something you put out there and just kind of not throw it at the wall, but just whoever read it. Is it that sort of thing?
That was a kind of a promise that I was like really doing this and not screwing around. That was so
Okay.
much. Plus the format of that book was different because we were putting up a page a week every week for like 2 years. So it wasn't
Okay.
it was not a full issue that came out. Although I did pace it out so that there was an ending every 22 pages, like a cliffhanger or some kind of a chapter, some kind of a beat happening in like page 22. And then again, 44 and 66 all the way through the series.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I did have hopes that it would eventually be printed, and it was actually, it came out in an anthology at IDW, like these big, what they called magazines, but it was like these big ass hardcover, like anthologies of comic stories and prose and interviews and things. So anyway, I digress. Let's see that for that book, there was more like a little chapter ending at the end of every page, because I didn't want to just put up one. If you take any comic off the shelf, imagine putting up one page of an action scene, and that's it for the week. Like in the middle, like there's no dialogue, it's just like sound effects, and then like that's your page, and I'll see you next Wednesday. That kind of sucks. I wanted it to be a satisfying read every week, and so it was actually a journal entry. Like the whole thing was told from the point of view of this German kid who was drafted onto a U-boat in World War II, and every page was a page of his journal as this awful shit was happening in that boat. So sometimes there would be a journal entry that was a little longer than one page, and so, but even then there would have to be some kind of an ending at the end of each page to lead you to get you through to the next week. So you have to kind of look at the format of what the thing is that you're doing and respect that format. If you're telling a story and it feels like it would be better served as a prose novel or as a short story or as an animated short or whatever, like find the place where it belongs, and try to be true to that thing. And if you feel like it would work better, if you really, really want it to be a comic, then find ways to make it work better as a comic.
So do you have any prose too, or do you just work on comics?
I have some short stories that I published on that website. I'm not sure they're actually available on there anymore. That was a long time ago. I have some stories that I kind of keep to myself. At some point, I like to go through them again and clean them up. I got a screenplay I'm working on. I've got some prose stories. I've got some other things. But lately, right now, I'm just so unbelievably underwater with comics and with my other job in the Army that I don't have a lot of time to give to other stuff, sadly. But I would like to come back to prose.
Nice. Okay. Do you mind? Can we talk a little bit about the Hulk? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
So going back to horror, like I think that your work on that, and especially the art with Nic Klein, that's incredible body horror. Like the sequences of Bruce Banner transforming or vice versa, the Hulk transforming back, are some of the most insane visually panels. Like and I didn't read it until recently, but I was posting one of these panels today. His eyes are bulging out as like Hulk is like coming out of his mouth. Oh my God, dude. Like that's good stuff.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that's what I wanted. When they came to me to do a Hulk series, people were still like really just thinking about and missing the immortal Hulk run that Al Ewing and Joe Bennett did. Yeah, that was just such an effective take, man. I just love the Cronenberg body horror take on Hulk. It just made so much sense for
crazy stuff.
Yeah, it made so much sense for the character's origins. Like the way the book came to be in the first place, how Stan Lee wanted it to be like a Jekyll and Hyde / Frankenstein kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it was cool to see him come back to those roots. So when he asked me to do Hulk, I was like, man, how am I going to do this without just aping what Al and Joe did? Because it was just perfect. I love that take. Like, how am I going to do this without just being a copycat? And so I kind of sat with it for a few days. I'm like, what if we went harder? What if instead of the like black science Cronenberg kind of body horror, what if we made like a folk horror thing where it's more like it's kind of the man on the run kind of setup the way that it was in the old show.
Yes.
But it's all through the American South. And there's all these opportunities for awesome Southern Gothic kind of horror where you see these, instead of monsters being made in laboratories, you're seeing things like crawling out of riverbeds and potter's fields and, out of Hagman's trees and cemeteries and things. Like just a very different kind of take that I just love doing. And Nick is perfect for that shit.
Yeah.
He's such a talented dude. And honestly, he's putting so much love into these pages. This is the best stuff Nick's ever done. And he'll tell you the same thing. Like this is the best work Nick has ever done by far. And he was great. He's been great this whole time. But now he's just doing doing the Lord's work.
So how much of that like is you describing the transformation versus you kind of being like, just draw like the most grotesque Cronenberg-esque, transformation you could think of?
I do describe a lot of it on the page.
Okay.
But he understands that it's all just kind of suggestions and that I want him to go nuts. Like he's the one that brings it to life and makes it like magic,
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? If you want, I can pull up a bit of a script right now.
Oh, that would be incredible.
Do you have the ability to put up images later? I know this is largely an audio podcast.
No, but yeah, I could definitely do that.
All right. You can show like the pages, but like there's that awesome transformation in the first issue. Okay. So in issue 1, this happened in pages 20 and 21. Whenever there's a transformation, I love for it to be like a 2-page spread, because I want that thing. I don't want it to be separate pages if we don't have to. So like panel 1, Banner throws one hand in the air as his finger bones suddenly violently become longer, agonizingly dislocating all of his finger joints. Panel 2, Banner falls to his knees in pain, slamming his weirdly enlarged palms onto the ground, and the force of it sends a massive tremor through the ground like a tidal wave or an explosive earthquake. Trees are toppled or uprooted, and 2 FBI agents are thrown into the air from the force. Panel 3, Banner's mouth opens as he shrieks in pain, and his teeth and bright green Hulk blood burst out of his mouth. His teeth are being pushed out by the larger Hulk teeth. Panel 4, one of his collarbones suddenly violently elongates, dislocating his shoulder and ripping through the remains of his shirt and jacket. Panel 5, his veins turn green, and as his blood turns to quote-unquote gamma blood, suddenly his muscles start to irregularly surge larger like balloons, like some of the transformations we saw in Immortal. His palms are still planted firmly in the ground, muscles tense from the pain. And then there's the big, I didn't describe this one panel because I think Nick and I talked through that one, so I left that description out. Panel 7, super close on Banner's eyes and forehead, starting to look big and green and full of hatred. And that's where he goes, Banner's mine.
Yeah.
Panel 8, with a swipe of his arm, he knocks the last 2 C guns to pieces. The guns that I don't think we ever actually got into details, but the feds are shooting these guns that fire cosmic energy, which is kind of like the quote unquote opposite of gamma. He knocks the last 2 C guns to pieces, the guns that the last 2 remaining FBI agents are holding. One of them, the team leader, is knocked onto his back from the force. And that's where he says, tell Stark. And then there's the page turn. You get the full page splash where he's like fully the Hulk now.
Yes. Yeah.
Says, leave me alone. And that is it. That's how that one goes. So there is always a lot of description. I want to make sure that I'm giving him stuff to work with. I don't want to be like, make it look awesome.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm not doing my job when I do that. I want to make sure I'm doing my part in this deal,
Yeah, no, that was super descriptive. I think that, not to say like this in a bad way, it was way more than I was expecting, I guess, on the page of how I could picture it, the final product. So that was really cool.
Good.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. There's a lot of, you'll see stuff coming in upcoming issues as well, where I do give Nick a lot of direction, but not in the slavish way where I expect him to do it all. Like very often I'll describe a ton of stuff, more than he could potentially even do on the page, knowing that he will be picking and choosing the things that he wants to do. I don't ever, like when I get the pages back, I'm not ever like, Nick, you left out this thing, go back and do it. Nick never gives me a reason to call anything out like that. I just want to give him, I'm just telling him a story so that he can tell the reader a story, So like I'm telling him all the things I'm seeing in my head. And if he has a layout that works really, really great for him, except he has to leave out a couple of things, or he has to change a beat, he has to take a panel out or put one in or whatever, he's completely free to do all of that. Because he's the cinematographer, and I don't ever want to like force him to do anything. There was actually a script that I gave him recently. Which one was this for? This would have been for issue 13, which is all drawn and in the can and ready to go now. But in that one, it was just really full. There's a lot of stuff that has to happen in that issue. And so some of the pages were pretty cramped, and I didn't realize how cramped they were. I always try to give Nick at least a page or two that are splash pages because he loves those and he just crushes them every time. And he didn't have any splash pages, and there were an awful lot of 5-panel pages. And he was like, man, I don't know, this is really full. And he's like, this one image especially, this has got to be a full page spread. I was like, man, there's just so many beats that we have to get into this thing. So I went through and I went through the entire script again and just like trimmed out every panel I felt like I could. And I gave it to him again, but it still wasn't that much more sparse. I was like, man, I'm sorry. I feel like this is all I can do. He was like, so when he was doing it again, I could tell he still wasn't having a great time. He still felt fettered. Like he had to just put too much in there. I was like, I don't know. It's still pretty full. So I was like, screw it, man. I'm just going to make it work. So I took 2 pages that really should be, like panel spreads. or full page spreads. And I was like, I'm just going to make these spreads. And then now I'm like, okay, now I got to make the pages work somehow. And then I had to start making some hard choices about what to cut. But honestly, it did turn out better. And Nic crushed it like he always does. And I'm glad I did it. So sometimes there is a lot of give and take and collaborative stuff where I'm trying to give Nic something that he just loves drawing, that he's proud of the rest of his life. And if I'm just cramming a book full of stuff, it's not going to look as cool. Nic's going to have as much fun doing it. That's going to show on the page. So, Nic doesn't really work for me. We're collaborators. In a way, I work for him. Like, I'm trying to make sure that he has a great time and gives us his, the absolute best of his amazing skills.
No, it definitely feels that way. And especially with Incredible Hulk. I mean, like I said, so I've read your Action Comics, and then Incredible Hulk just is incredibly different. Well, I don't even want to say incredibly different, but I definitely think the art that's there is a big part of that. And, I was thinking about this because I was kind of just also like cramming a lot of your work in at the same time. So me doing that is like, now I can kind of hold them in my head at the same time, right? And I noticed that you're always kind of talking about monsters in some way, whether it's like the monster inside of us or fighting a monster, whether figuratively or literally, like someone like Mongol, in which case it's both, I guess. So I really like that. I feel like I could see that throughout your work, and now I guess I'm kind of looking forward to it because you seem to approach it in a different way every time.
Oh, thanks, man. I try to, yeah. I've got a lot of things that I care about that I try to put into my books. And I just kind of dress them up in comic booky ways, like if I have something I want to say about human trafficking or about, refugees or, a war that's happening somewhere, or Jesus, I don't know, about, abuse, violence, addiction to violence, all kinds of things that I've encountered in my life, or stories that I know that I care about. This is comics, and it can't just be like a lecture or a manifesto, nailed to the wall. It needs to be told in a very visual, fantastical kind of way. So yeah, like a lot of that does come through in the form of monsters, or of like monstrous elements of ourselves, or, a lot of it just makes very just compelling reading in comic book form,
Oh yeah, definitely. I also wanted to ask you about, okay, so I admittedly haven't read these comics yet, but I do know that, so for Marvel, you've done an Alien series.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the movies, so I wanted to know, like, how does that come about? Was that something you pitched, or did Marvel come to you? Okay.
Man,
nice. Okay.
I never like chased down a book, like never. But when I found out that Marvel I didn't know ahead of time. Like, the most recent thing I'd done at Marvel, I think, was Marvel Zombies, or maybe I did Marvel Zombies Resurrection, which is really fun.
Yeah.
Which of course is super horror-y, like this, once again, I do my monster thing. But, I think I might've done Captain America. I did like a Captain America miniseries tied in with the Empire event as well. That might've been done by then. But around that same time, I saw the announcement on IGN, like next to everyone else, that Marvel had now had the comic rights to Alien and Predator. And when I saw that, dude, I like stood up and yelled. Like I did a straight up Chuck Liddell in my house. It was like, "Rah, that's awesome." And I emailed my Marvel Zombies editor, Jordan White, who at the time was also doing all the X-Men stuff. I reached out to Jordan, like, give me this book. Like, I know everything about Alien. Like, I assume they already had an Alien team in place because they'd already announced it. I was like, okay, they must have somebody already lined up in the book, somebody huge. I'm not going to get that book. But I also knew that they'd recently done Conan with Jason Aaron, and then they started doing spin-off series. So I was like, maybe they'll let me do one of those. I was like, man, you got to give me an Alien book. Like, I know more about Alien than fucking anyone you ever heard of. Like, ask me anything right now. I was just so into Alien, and Jordan kind of did like straight up like the Homer into the bushes, like, okay, like take it easy. Like, wow, you really do like this stuff. What I didn't know is that they did not have a creative team on that book yet, and somebody in the office was already kind of pitching for me to be the guy to do it, and I didn't know that.
Oh, that's incredible. Did they know you were a big Alien fan? Is that why?
No, they didn't.
Oh.
They just, honestly, you could probably read, any idiot could probably read my Marvel Zombies work and see the influence on Aliens, like the second film there's elements of the first and second films in that first one shot that I did. And there's a miniseries after that was more like a Cormac McCarthy thing. Anyway, I'm going off the rails again. But so if you read that stuff, you can see my love for Alien just in the book. So they were pitching for me to do. Somebody was going to bat for me to do that book, and then, so then when I kicked the door in, telling about how much I loved it, they were like, "Okay, show us what you got." And I went in there with like my tome of knowledge and my spectacles, and I was like, "All right, here's what you should do. Here's what I'm going to do. And here's where Dark Horse went wrong. Here's how we're going to do it right. Here's what we need. We need this, 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 this. Here's first arc, second arc, third arc. This is what we're going to do." And they're like, "Yeah, okay, let's do it." So it worked out. It worked out great, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I love Alien. I know those movies by heart. So, I mean, after a couple of years of it, I was getting really, really tight on bandwidth. I didn't really have the time, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for the fourth arc when I realized, like, man, I just don't have the time to give this anymore. And I had 2 years I was super proud of on that book, and I decided to step away while they still wanted me to stay. Rather than overstay my welcome and keep writing it until it sucks, I decided to just take my, pack up the 3 stories that we did that I was very proud of. I'm going to leave it right here and let someone else do something I'm going to let somebody else who wants their shot do something awesome with it next, instead of just trying to squeeze every idea I can out of my own brain. And that's when they came to me with Hulk, because I gave up Alien because I didn't have the time to do it. And then they're like, "Do Hulk." I'm like, "Damn, okay." Yeah. I mean, that was one I wanted to do too. So I ended up doing it.
Oh, that's incredible. So so a lot of times we're not just talking about comics on the show. We're talking about movies. We do talk about horror movies a lot. We haven't done an Alien episode yet, surprisingly. Maybe we have to bring you back for that one.
Dude, whenever you want to, I'm down. Let's do it. Hell yeah.
But I feel like something we always debate, Alien versus Aliens. Do you have a preference?
Man, I mean, they're both 10s out of 10,
Absolutely.
I mean, if I gun to my head, if I had to pick one, I would pick the first one.
Yes. Okay.
Because, the second one is really what made Ripley way more interesting as a character. It made her the legit action star that the character of Ripley became.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the property became, what Ripley became as an iconic hero and all that stuff. That a lot of that really kind of came together in Aliens. But that first one is the one that set the stage as far as the visual identity of what Aliens is, of the concept with the Giger monster. And like, I think to me, the Giger alien is the most perfect representation of fear on film of all time. It's just perfect. It just doesn't get any scarier than that. I love that thing. I love like how it works. Like it's gross, like life cycle, and the whole thing is just so upsetting and gross and like just it's just perfect. And just the world building of that first one is what really does it for me. Like, it's just about these like truckers in space, and then suddenly you're in the derelict. Like, you just see the derelict, and you're like, Jesus, that's what a crazy looking ship. And then you go inside of it, and it's even crazier. And there's the space jockey and the eggs, and then one opens, and then later you see one with the thing on his face, and they're like, what's happening? It's just like it's just this big series of like emotional car crashes over and over and over. Like, and within the course, like every couple of minutes, you're getting your mind blown over again and over again and over again. Like, what the fuck is that? Over and over. In a way that other, I know, I can't even imagine. I mean, all that stuff is so just in me that I can't imagine seeing it for the first time. I don't remember seeing it for the first time. I can't remember not knowing all that stuff. I can't remember not knowing what's coming in the dinner scene, Yeah. But imagine seeing that for the first time, not knowing what's about to happen. And then seeing the thing, like the next time you see that little dude, he's like massive now. And like,
yeah.
And like the cut scenes with where that one dude is becoming the egg and everything. There's just, man, so many incredible moments. And the second one is probably just by the numbers, the stronger film as far as like character arc and plot arc and all the things that we're taught make a great movie. All those pieces are in Aliens. But that first one is just, you're just getting your mind blown over and over and over. And I just can't, it's hard to put a score on that,
Yeah, no, it's one of those movies for sure. Unfortunately for me, my first experience wasn't the movie. I was like 7 years old, and there used to be a ride at Disney World, I guess, where you could like sit in a chamber. Did you ever go to that?
No.
And so you would sit in like a chamber, and like it's like you're on the ship, and like you would kind of see flashes of the alien. It's not even like a moving ride either. It's one of those like still, like it's just like the experience, I guess.
Just bounce you around a little.
Not even that. Like it's just like you're strapped to a chair and like you feel its breath on your neck. But I was 7 years old and I was screaming my head off because I don't think a 7-year-old maybe shouldn't be in there if they, at least me as a 7-year-old.
That's pretty young. Yeah. That's pretty
I thought that thing was going to kill me, but
yeah, not to judge your parents, but that was a rough choice.
No, you could judge him. You could judge him.
Yeah, dude. If I had to rank them though, I like the new ones too. I mean, 4 was the worst. Like Resurrection is by far the worst one, but I like the new ones too. I know a lot of people crap on them, but I think they're great. I think they're going to hold up extremely well. I know that Covenant was not what Ridley Scott wanted to do with the Prometheus sequel, but I still enjoyed it, and I thought Prometheus was great.
I was going to ask, as a big Alien fan, okay, because it's pretty contentious, that movie, I feel like.
I know. I think it's great. I really do. I mean, I'll admit to some bias. I mean, I'm just the biggest Alien fan ever, and to see more of the Giger designs, and because there's so much love for Giger in that movie, and also in Covenant too. I mean, those are the things that really make the aliens sing. Is like just the Giger design, and the life cycle is so gross and everything. And those parts are very much present. And also they take all the pieces from the original films meaning the first 2, arguably 3, that worked so well, and combine them in new ways to draw new meaning out of them. Like the relationship between aliens and humans and the androids and now the engineers and everything. Like there's kind of this almost like the sibling rivalry between humans and androids, and just they ask these big questions about life, about where we come from, about the big questions. It takes all the elements that made the first 2 movies so distinct and recombined them to tell a story that is in a lot of ways more meaningful than the first couple. So I think Prometheus was beautifully done. I love the design of the station that they find on that other moon, where it's like because Giger initially had done some designs for Dune as well back in the day, and we got to see this amazing. There's this one design he did of a big like orb like structure with like a big human face on the top of it, and we got to see that in that station that we see. There are these like really beautiful moments of like kind of these like homage images to Giger, which I think goes a long way. That was something I really wanted in my Alien run in the comics, was to have I wanted Giger's work to be all through it, however we could do that, which is why. Well, you haven't read it yet, but I mean, right at the very beginning of the series, you'll see like this human woman alien hybrid thing, and some fans.
Oh, is that a character you created for the series?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and in the first series, in the first arc, it's this big mystery about what she is. Like, is she real? Is this just this guy's fever dream? Like, what is this thing that we're looking at? And in the end of the first arc, you sort of find out what it is, kind of. And then that's kind of like the specter that looms over all 3 of my arcs. And you see her we kind of see her again in the third arc. And if she becomes more important, we see what she is and what she means. And that was a big homage to Giger too, because Giger in his lifetime, he had this lover named Lee Tobler, who tragically killed herself when she was 27. Oh. And she killed herself in his studio, like blew her brains out, with one of his works behind her, and there's this big,
holy shit,
this tragic thing.
Whoa.
But he would actually do some art installations with her as the subject, like her in it, she would physically be in the work. Like he would paint her or put these prosthetic things over her and sculpt her or photograph her. Like she was in a lot of his work. He has a lot of work that looks like her, but in the middle of these crazy biomechanical, erotic, horrific images. And I wanted to kind of honor those elements of his work by putting Lee Tobler style stuff in the book. So, and not everyone got it, and I totally understand. Like, not everyone's like going to be the crazy uber deep dive fan that I am, but I stand by the choice. And I think if you go through the whole story that I wrote for the comics, I think that the choice made sense. And I was very proud of how that came out.
The fact that you are a huge fan is pushing me towards reading it way sooner now, and also giving Prometheus a rewatch. I feel like it deserves. If you are such a huge fan and you're saying it's like, I need to reassess it.
I really do. I stand by that movie. I mean, people, I'm always getting into knife fights over that movie. I keep it coming. I think it's awesome. There are a lot of big questions that it asks that it doesn't necessarily give you all the answers, which I think is cool. I mean, almost like as a gamer, I really like FromSoft games. I love like Elden Ring, stuff like that, where like a lot of the storytelling, a lot of the world building is done in these ways that it's a world that feels like it exists whether you're in it or not. It doesn't all revolve around you. You're just a guy walking around.
Yeah.
And I love that you don't know all the answers. Just like it's how we live in the real world, right? We don't know why that street is named what it's named, or where this, the history of this building, or why the bay is shaped like this when it used to be like this. You have to kind of ask, you have to find out yourself. So there are things like that in the film that I admire very much. There's one thing that people really get contentious about with those films is they want, it kind of gives it makes it seem like the origin of the aliens is very new and young, as if you're seeing the creation of the aliens themselves. Yeah. But that's not how I took it. I think there's a very different take on that. I don't think that's actually what you're seeing, because we see this bas relief on the wall, which we established the aliens have already been around for a long time. So one of the biggest gripes that people have with that movie is invalid, because I don't think they're saying what some fans thought they were saying about the origins of the alien. So anyway,
I feel like I need to know more lore about Alien before you know what I mean? I feel like I saw it as like a newbie, as opposed to, having seen every single other Alien movie, Alien versus Predator, stuff like that. Yeah. No, I'm definitely going to give it another watch for sure.
Cool, man. Well, I hope you dig it.
Yeah. I want to ask you one more question, though, before I leave you. Sure. I'm going to circle back around to Crocodile Black. And if you're listening, you have to read this first issue, because, first of all, because it's great, but also to understand what I'm about to ask. Do you truly think that Wendy's fries are better than McDonald's?
I don't eat either one anymore. I can't say. I remember them both being pretty tasty, but it's all just chemical bullshit. So who can say? They're both shot full of chemicals to make them taste as good as possible. So I guess I don't really think about it. Yeah, I don't eat a lot of fast food these days. I am in Portland, Maine right now. I'm on tour, and they have Elevation Burger here, which I did find pretty good. So I ran in.
That's a pretty good place. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went in there. This is actually the hometown of Sean Gordon Murphy, and he and I hung out the other day. And nice. and his wife Katana, who's also an author, and got to know this town pretty well. So I am eating out more last few days than I typically do, but I cannot talk with any authority about McDonald's versus Wendy's anymore, sadly.
See, I feel like you had a really strong opinion about it, because the guy that's saying it is better, just, we know what happens to him right after he says that line.
That's his so crucial mistake.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any strong opinions about that.
All right, then. Well, I think that's all I have for you tonight then. But I think we had a good talk. I'm excited to read the rest of Crocodile Black for sure. You said 5 issues, and April 15th is the final order cutoff.
Yeah,
right?
April 15th is FOC. Yeah, so get into pre-orders before then. And man, if you dig the first one even a little bit, man, keep reading, because every issue, Sam's art levels up so much. Like it is a slow burn, as you said, and every issue just levels up more and more as far as the excitement and the violence and the as I said, the intrusion of the grotesque upon reality in such a distinct visual way. I just can't wait for people to see what Sam is doing.
Awesome. I guess I will ask, but I probably know the answer, just because if it hasn't been announced, I'm assuming there's nothing to talk about. But can we expect more stuff from you, at least from Marvel or DC?
Yeah. I am drowning in work right now. I'm finishing up Crocodile Black right now, but I'm also I'm wrapping up Green Lantern War Journal here very soon. I shouldn't say too much more about that, but War Journal has been really fun. Incredible Hulk is ongoing, and I have 3. I can say this. I think I have 3 new series get greenlit that it's too early to announce what they are, but every single one is like a bucket list book, and
that's incredible.
I cannot wait for people to see what's coming. It's so dope, man. So be looking for more.
I'm excited. I'm always excited when I see your name on a book. So I will be looking. I hope everyone listening, if you haven't read anything by Phillip Kennedy Johnson, please, Hulk, Action Comics, Crocodile Black for sure. Thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Dude, of course.
This was a blast.
It's great to meet you, man. Thanks for having me on.
You too. Thank you so much. Seriously, this was a blast.
Hi, you're listening to Comics and Chronic, and I'm Jake FH.
I'm Cody Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Iannaccio.
And you can tune in every Thursday to hear new episodes of Comics and Chronic.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Comics and Chronic. That's Comics, the letter N, Chronic.
We'll see you guys next week.
Woo!
Peace.